Thank you for everyone who's joining us live today. If you do have any questions, please post them in the comments and chat. We'll be sure to answer them. Or just say hi. Thanks so much again for joining us. So, Rich, speaking of creative problem solving, something that our clients come to us with on a regular basis is, when do I need to redesign my website? Do I need to redesign my website? And that is typically something that falls on the responsibility of the marketing department within a B2B space. So that's definitely a creative problem that needs to be solved. What's your recommendation on when should a B2B organization redo their website?
We get that question quite a bit. In fact, a lot of the clients that we work with, one of their first questions is my website any good? Should I be redesigning it?
We wouldn't be in business without that question.
Yeah, that's a pretty important question. I think websites in general usually get redesigned every 3 to 4 years. And we as web consumers, we're all online. The internet's part of our lives now. We know websites, and we can see that things are constantly being updated. But those are largely B2C websites, right?
Yeah.
And their methodology, their raison d'etre is very different from a B2B website. I would say for a B2B company, if as long as nothing's broken, so there's nothing wrong with UI, UX fundamentally, there's nothing wrong with their CMS or their platform, and their messaging is correct, then they don't really need to redo their website so quickly or so often, because the user or their audience is less discerning than a B2C customer. As long as they're getting the information that they're looking for, they're less fickle about how nice the website looks. So what's important to them is that as they're going through their journey, their buyer's journey, which is super long, because they're doing a lot of research and they want to know more about the services that you're offering, they're willing to sort of put aside some of maybe, it's red instead of green, some of the design aspects of your website, as long as they can get to the information they're looking for.
They need, right? Now, if it is, though, a full brand refresh, brand redesign, so something that they worked with a different team on, and now they have a completely new look and feel. Website is a big portion of that, right? Because that is a property that their clients or customers go and visit. So where does that play into the equation? Should they just reskin the website when a new brand is unveiled, or should they actually invest more time and energy and budget ultimately into a brand new, redeveloped and redesigned website?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, if you're doing a brand refresh, that's a really good reason to be redoing your website. And hopefully during this process of rebranding, you have also added into your budget the component to build out a new website. If you're doing a rebrand, chances are you're rethinking your values, your position statement, and the way that you present yourself to your clients and customers, right?
Yeah.
So your message is probably changing. You've probably refined who your ideal customers are. And if you're doing that already, I think going through a reskin of your website is doing it a disservice.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a rebrand, you should be relooking at your website again from an architecture point of view and making sure that all the content is correct and the page is working in terms of the flow for this new or refined ideal customer, and making sure that all the touch points are there for that person.
Yeah. I always like to think from more of a marketing perspective when an organization ultimately undertakes a rebranding exercise. It's not just to make it look pretty, to stand out. There's more substance to it. And from a marketing perspective, that ultimately is driven through the clients and the customers. So if there's been a big change with your clients and customers, that means their buying journey most likely has changed.
Yeah.
That means your website no longer suits their needs either. So the website needs to be fully redesigned.
That's right.
And you touched on a really important point with respect to content and architecture. We do have a lot of our clients kind of coming in and saying, we've been in business for 20 plus years. We've had our website since the 90s. And typically organizations, when they redesign a website, they take all the past content and then they just dump it into new website.
Transfer it over.
It's the same thing. It might change some headlines here and there, but
Mhm.
ultimately, how should they actually approach their content if they are thinking of a website redesign?
Well, first of all, you said earlier, with respect to redesigning a website, I would never say to redesign a website if the only thing you're doing is reskinning it,
Right.
changing colors, changing some fonts. Maybe it matches the brand, refresh a little bit better, but otherwise, uh, there's really no point in rebuilding a website and spending that money if it's just going to be an aesthetic change.
Yeah. And developers hate doing that stuff anyway.
It's a lot of work for not a lot of reward.
Yeah.
I find.
Or impact for your business.
Yeah, you really do need to include an architectural audit when it comes to looking at your website. And yes, after X number of years, especially for B2B websites, which are very deep because they have a lot of information. And also B2B businesses tend to have, especially large businesses, have lots of people involved, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of different departments. And over time, what happens is everybody wants a piece of that website. They want to put in their 2 cents about what is important, what features and benefits that they want to emphasize. True. And then sooner or later, well, first of all, if you don't have a dedicated person who understands the original architecture and the original intent to where the sections are supposed to be and what the pages are meant to do and what to say, that person becomes a gatekeeper. And they're getting all of these submissions, and they just say, fine, I'm just going to take it and put it over here. If you don't already have, for example, a section on values and philosophy, that wasn't part of your original architecture, and then somebody from the C-suite comes along and says, we have new values, we got to put it somewhere. Where do you put it? And then you have that question and that response over and over and over again for 4 or 5 years. And then all of a sudden you have a website that is completely unwieldy with lots of content, some of it old, some of it irrelevant. What do you do with it?
Yeah. What do you do with it? How do you organize that content? How do you organize it? How do we solve this massive problem of too much content out there that eats up so much energy?
I think there's a number of ways you can definitely approach it. First of all, there's journey mapping.
Our favorite.
So you have to figure out who your ideal customer is and sort of walk through their experience, all their touch points. Journey mapping happens not just from a website perspective, but it can also happen from a service level and the overall engagement that they have with your brand. When we do it, it's mainly about the website and where they're going and how they interact and what they want out of a website. So you have to figure out who your ideal customer is. And then imagine as you're walking through that website, whether or not your website is meeting all their needs. That is a huge process at figuring out who they are and then establishing your architecture based off of your ideal customer. Yeah. Another thing that we do in terms of figuring out how to prioritize content is something called card sorting. You know what card sorting is?
No. Tell me.
Maybe I should explain it.
It's my time to learn.
Card sorting is exactly what you would imagine in terms of what card sorting says about itself. You're basically putting stuff onto a card and then sorting it out on the table. It's a very democratic process in terms of allowing everyone to have their input, but it also allows you to do a mental map of what people are thinking when it comes to how they perceive what the important aspects of the website should be. So what you would do, for example, is, okay, we have all this content. We don't know how to organize it. Maybe your first exercise is to redo your sitemap. So what you would do is on each one of these cards, write down what the pages are. Everyone gets together and then they sort of reorganize things. Maybe the history page goes under about, maybe features goes under product, and you kind of go through that process. Everybody has a chance to collaborate, and usually it gets to really, the meeting becomes really rambunctious as everyone sort of fights over where the culture page should be.
Collaborates.
Is the about section something that should be in the primary nav or should it be in a secondary navigation?
Yeah.
Who is it speaking to? Who is our ideal customer?
Yeah.
And what do they need to see first?
Yeah.
So card sorting is a really great way of organizing your thinking, especially with big groups of people. And then going back to the ideal buyer question, who are they and how are they going through your website? How do you know if you are a B2B website, you've gone through this website planning process and design process for the past 5 years, you think you know, and everything is based off of what you think you know, right? And we all know that with B2B companies, you fall into a trap of thinking that, okay, everyone thinks like me, and therefore I should build the website just like the way that I think.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't do that.
Because I would buy this service, or I would buy what you're.
I understand what these terms are. I understand that if I want to find this thing, then I would go to this link and then this section and this section.
Yeah.
Card sorting helps eliminate that. So what you can do is also throw the card sorting exercise out to your ideal buyer personas. Okay, and you can do it. You can either bring them into your house and have them do it on the table, or you can use an online service. And there are great websites out there that allow you to push out the card sorting exercises.
Yeah.
And then you can get a huge sample size of people kind of coming in and providing their input, and then you sum it up, and you have a generalization of where people are thinking and what things should be called.
And that's actually such a good exercise, because we've done it in the past, especially for large organizations, again, that are used to talking about themselves and thinking about themselves and presenting themselves based on what their assumptions are, without really going out to their clients and customers and taking this exercise to the customers, doing the card sorting exercise internally and then externally, and comparing the two is really an incredibly eye-opening experience, because then the organization really looks at it and takes a step back and says, you know what, maybe we did make wrong assumptions.
Yeah.
And it's not about us. It really is about our clients and what they're looking for on our website. And values may not be one of those things at the end of the day, right? Let's talk a little bit about the structure of the website and how should it be organized to talk to all the client types and all the buyer personas and everybody who goes on the website, because there's lots of stakeholders involved. What happens then?
That's the toughest thing, because every business has not just one ideal buyer persona, but many.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to figure out how but you only have one website. That's the problem, right? But if you could have many websites, one for each buyer persona, that'd be fantastic.
Brilliant.
That'd be the best way you could do it. And if you could redesign the homepage to we already know who you are, and so we're going to serve up this unique experience just for you, that'd be terrific.
Yeah. Wouldn't it?
Unfortunately, we can't do that. But there are some things that we can do. You can, first of all, think about the way that your navigation works and your site structure works, and figure out who maybe your primary persona is. Or maybe you think about not just in terms of the type, but where they are in the buying process and their intent.
Or who's the most likely to do all the research, to gather all the information, because that's why they're on the website, is to do that, not necessarily the person who's actually signing on the dotted line saying, I approve for this to be
That's something that a lot
sold.
of people don't think about, is that they think that the person who's on the website and trying to learn more about you is the person who's going to be meeting with you and signing the contract. Chances are they don't have time for that. They're sending someone else, someone who's reporting into them, to go out and do that research and to canvas the internet for possible solutions.
Yeah.
And those people are now your ideal buyer persona, not the people who are making the decision. That comes later on. That could be an offline thing.
Yeah.
So how do you do it? A lot of B2B websites will have really, really deep content. So deep content, especially with content, blogs and articles and comprehensive guides and things, allows you to speak to very specific problems for each one of these ideal buyer personas, especially at different stages too. So they can find the thing that they want. And you serve it up to them, and they have a little bit more control. A lot of what we do in terms of structuring websites is that we have all this content. How do you organize it? You can do it through either the site navigation, or you can even do it through filtering or tagging or categorizing things, and then having really, really intuitive mechanisms for people to understand how to choose what they want to see. Yeah. Giving the control over to the user. Finally, the B2B website CTA really should be talk to somebody, speak to a rep. I mean, there's also download a guide, book a demo, but what people want to do, especially with B2B, because the transactional value is so high. The pricing is always touch and go. It's never a concrete price. You have to negotiate that. Yeah. You want to be able to speak to somebody if you're interested. So make it really easy to speak to a rep. Yeah. So, provide the information, provide the content, make sure it resolves certain problems that they have, and then talk to somebody, but it should be very non-committal.
Yeah.
I hate it when it's like a book a demo and you're like, well, I'm not really ready to do that yet because I know the sales pitch that's coming if I book a demo, right? I'm not ready to get married just yet. Just let's figure things out first. And have a few conversations, go on a coffee date, and then I can decide.
Yeah. Coffee date. Maybe that should be the next CTA. Let's go on a coffee date. Dates. Coffee date, virtual coffee date. Accessibility. Big topic these days. We are all about accessibility and really being to the highest standards possible. But it is difficult when there's really large websites. And I think ultimately this conversation is about should you, or at which point, if your website's on the older end, that you should say, you know what, we need to redesign it because we're not being, our website is not accessible to everybody.
Right. First of all, it shouldn't be a question of should I build an accessible website? It's when should I be doing it? And you should have done it like 3 years ago. In Ontario, there has been a mandate and a push for all websites to be accessible. In the beginning, in 2021, that's when the mandate came out. It was mainly for public service websites and any sort of company that had more than 50 employees. They now want all websites within Ontario to be accessible by the year 2026.
Wow, that's around the corner.
Time is moving really quickly.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be seen as something that you have to do. It shouldn't be seen as a hurdle. You should be building accessibility into your website just from the get-go. It should be part of your overall experience. And accessibility, what it means for the people who don't know is a lot of us navigate websites conventionally through a mouse or a computer or a phone. But there are some people who can't do that. Maybe they have visual impairments, they require some aid. Maybe they can't operate a mouse, and so they require a keyboard. So can your website accommodate people who can't see the website in normal ways? If there's a button and someone is hard of seeing and it just says read more, will they know what to do with that?
Yeah.
So you have to add like a little title to it to tell the person who's using like a screen reader.
What are you reading more about?
What am I reading more about?
Yeah.
So not only are you not alienating a huge segment of the population who don't consume websites in the typical way, but it's also great for like search engine optimization. So
which is a lot of people forget.
Google really ranks accessible websites higher, but also by virtue of creating something that's accessible to someone who may be visually impaired or whatever, it makes it easier for a search bot and a robot to crawl your website and index it. So you're doing it for everybody. It's a great thing to do.
It is. It's the right thing to do as well. We're running up on time. Can you summarize your top 4 takeaways for today?
Top 4 takeaways. The buyer journey is super long. It's not as long as a B2C. If you're looking at optimizing your website, think about your navigation and your architecture. Know also that your content can run really, really deep, to service the multiple ideal customers that are coming to your site. And finally, make it easy for them to speak to a service rep.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Yeah. Well, this was a lot of fun.
It was quick. Time goes by so fast. And don't forget, if you have any questions, please let us know via our LinkedIn or our contact us page on our website. And be sure to sign up for our next Hyphen Live. Thank you so much, everybody. Hope you had a great time.
Thanks for your time, everyone. See you soon.